Hello, my name is Rob Detweiler. I grew up in Buffalo, New York on a farm, and we had lots of animals that we really enjoyed. But one of my jobs after I turned 10, was to go up to the barn and do chores. And one of the chores we had to do was milk the cows. And so we would get up and we would carry a bucket. It was about a tenth of a mile. And me and my brothers would walk up to the barn and we would get the cows that were outside in the pasture and have them bring them into the stanchions where they stood that we could milk them. And we had to milk them by hand. And so you would come in the summertime, it'd be very warm and it smelled pretty heavy and musty, and you would be warm, so you'd want to kind of be a little bit away from the cows. And we had stools and you had to sit down on the stool, and you would had a bucket, and we just milked the cows into the bucket, and it took a little bit of time. And while we were milking them, my brother would be feeding them, giving them some water. They would be swishing their tail, and sometimes the tail would hit you in the head, and you would be getting this really warm milk, and it smelled really good because it was nice and warm. And you would milk, and it would take 15-20 minutes. It would take a little bit of time to milk them because we milked them by hand. We didn't have milking machines. We had 2 cows, and we would do one and then you do the other. One of the things you had to be prepared for and really quick is the cow wanted to move its leg. It might move its leg and kick your bucket, so you had to be able to move your arm very quick and catch the leg with your arm so it didn't knock over the bucket. And sometimes if they weren't happy, you'd hear them moving and mooing, and they could be really loud. And because you're on the stool right next to them, their belly's right here, and you could hear it rumble, and you could hear it get ready to moo, and you knew it was going to make some noise. And then one of the things that we really enjoyed was there were cats in the barn that were there to keep the mice down out of the grain, and we would shoot the milk and hit toward the cats, and the cats loved it when we shot the milk for them. They would be there. You'd hear them coming, and then they start giving you a little bit of meow and some noise so that you knew they were there. And then we would shoot them, and they'd get milk on them, and then they'd use their paws to wipe the milk off their face, and then they'd lick it off, and then they'd be ready for more. And in the summertime or the wintertime, the cats liked it. But in the wintertime, it actually was okay to do the milking chores, because in the wintertime, the cows stayed in the barn, and the barn was about a tenth of a mile from the house, and so you had to walk in the winter in the cold. So we'd have our hats on and our coats on and our mittens on, and our noses would get cold and your hands would get cold, and you'd be carrying it up there, and maybe even your feet would get cold. But when it came time to milk the cows were very warm. They were nice little heat generators. And so I would snuggle right down up tight against that cow, and I'd milk the cow, and it'd be warm here on this side and a little cold on that side. But I'd just stay right in there, snuggle down with my hat on. And that was the best job in the barn in the wintertime. And then the milk again would just be warm, and it'd actually be steaming. You get the smell, nice warm milk smell. And then you go, oh boy, the only bad thing is when I get done, I have to get away from this warm cow and get their straw ready so they can lay down and stay warm in the barn. And then I would have to put my hat, my mittens on, my boots on, and walk back home. And it was about a tenth of a mile, and it could be pretty cold. And lots of times the wind would be blowing, and you could hear the wind blowing through the trees, and you could hear the wind blowing and be stinging your nose. And if it was snowing, that was even worse, because I grew up, like I said, in Buffalo, New York, and there was lots of snow up there. But that was one of my fun jobs when I grew up. Fun, maybe in quotes, because it was work sometimes, but fun, milking those cows and bringing that warm milk home.